Hello, Tim. Where are you?
Good morning, Quinn and Rhodes. How are you?
There you
Good, sweetie, good. Oh, my gosh, Tim. So, Congressman, you were Tuesday night. It was last night, right?
Last night, we were at a debate, my opponent and I, and they were beginning to go into the program, and the moderator was standing right next to a U.S. flag. And I have been to, hundreds of public occasions of this sort, and had been to some debates in the past where they open it up with the Pledge of Allegiance. And then when the moderator started to introduce it to us and say, okay, you can begin your opening statements, I went to my microphone and said, can we start with the Pledge of Allegiance? And she said, that's not the way we do things here. And I thought it would be a good idea. And she said, you should have brought that up ahead of time. We could have discussed it. At that point, someone from the audience said, it's not something you should just do anyway. It's something you should just do anyways. You don't need a discussion for that.
Amen.
So she, again, tried to stop it. So I started saying the Pledge of Allegiance. And everybody stood up and did the same thing, and it was it didn't take up a lot of time. She had said it would take up time in the whole program, and if that's the case, I would have gladly yielded my time for a pledge. But it was interesting that that's the way that they approach it. I should also add, afterwards, I went up to her and I said, I really think you ought to start these programs with pledge. And she said, we're not doing that. And I said, yes, you are. And she said, we're not going to do that again. I said, yes, you will. And so we had one of those kind of conversations afterwards.
Good for you.
It just seems to make sense. And there was a soldier, a Marine in the audience, too, who had just come back from the hospital, who was wounded in Afghanistan. And I'm thinking if this guy could take time to go to war and suffer wounds of war and do this for our country and for the flag, surely we could take a couple minutes out of a League of Women Voters sponsored debate for a campaign for Congress.
Beautifully
it was
put.
A shame.
Beautifully put. Now, I got a lot of email this morning, Congressman, about that, and they were all very supportive of you, very appreciative that you stood up and did that. Now, one email said that they thought that the moderator said something about it not being a neutral event if they did the pledge. Do you recall anything along those lines? Just curious.
I don't recall offhand. I know the whole thing was videotaped for local cable. We'll see if that part makes it to the TV.
Okay. I want to know I want to know who considers it not neutral to say the Pledge of Allegiance. I mean, that's just absolutely amazing to me.
Well, maybe if the debate took place in England or Spain, they wouldn't have to say the U.S. But it took place in America, so we ought to say it.
Now, let me ask you: did you know about this? Had you seen the YouTube video of what happened in Illinois?
I had not seen the YouTube video. I know that there's been times when people have had events and they have not had the pledge, and I've had 300 some town hall meetings over the last 2 years, and except for the ones I do at the telephone town hall meeting, we begin them with a pledge, just the way we do it, and I think that that's the way public events should become.
Yeah, I think that any debate, I think that people have come to expect the Pledge of Allegiance to be said. Now, I'm guessing the league, because in Illinois the same thing happened, although I have to say it wasn't one of the candidates that suggested they do it, so I'm really impressed with that. But it was, again, the League of Women Voters who had decided that that wasn't appropriate for that forum. So it looks to me like there's a bit of an agenda there.
There may be. I think that that's something that should be clarified at the onset, and then I think candidates should have the option of participating or not participating with an organization that refuses to acknowledge the pledge. In fairness, the event was also sponsored by some members of the local PTA who did come up to me afterwards and assured me that that was not their policy at all, that they begin meetings and school board meetings and PTA meetings and class days with the Pledge of Allegiance, and they were not in agreement with the action that was taken by the League of Women Voters. So I think it's something that I would certainly encourage other candidates and citizens around the country to find out if that's part of the policy. They might want to reconsider either. I would hope the organization would reconsider their policy, or I would imagine these are ones where citizens themselves would say, this is an area we're not going to give ground on pledging allegiance to our flag.
Well, some of the emailers that I got, they kind of thought that the moderator was sort of hostile toward you. I don't know if you picked that up.
There was a couple of times. One was the audience is supposed to not applaud after comments. I made some comments about health care bill, and they applauded that. At that point, the moderator said that I needed to control my people. I didn't say anything.
Oh, you're kidding me.
And then there was another point where my opponent made some comments, and the audience applauded him, but she did not say that he needed to control his people.
You have to control your people.
My
gosh!
I think she misunderstands what we do in America.
I think she does.
Well, you know what I found?
What was the other thing you said? There was one other
thing.
Well,
the other part was she was asking a question about a Supreme Court decision that had to do with campaigns. And I was answering it, she, at the end, started to give me some. She started to debate me on that, and I said, "Am I debating you or my opponent?" And she proceeded to go on. So I thought, oh well, that's the way it is. Just to state my points and leave it at that.
Very good.
Well
done.
Pretty obvious that there was a bias there and a double standard.
Well, it does concern me, and in a situation like that, you just come to accept. Unfortunate that some of those double standards will be there, and there are appropriate venues to debate those and challenge those, and I will want to talk with the League of Women Voters and get some clarification on their policies. But I think that any organization that hosts one of these events ought to be neutral. Now, you and I have also seen people who have moderated debates, which clearly have some biases in some of the questions they ask. But that's, I think, also where all Americans need to stand up and say if they feel that there is a bias on the part of a moderator in any direction, they need to make their voices heard too and say this is not appropriate. At least when it comes to public debate and public discourse and these kind of things, I don't want to get in the back of the car. I want to make sure that we all have a chance to be up front and having our voice heard without someone shutting it